Welcome back to Smith and Grezzy. This is podcast number 6. Before we move on to the main subject today, which is an interview we had some weeks ago with Martin Hall, we'd just like to recap about podcast number 5, which involved registration issues arising from the Spring Festival. Hi, Sandy. We've had a
Hi,
lot
mate.
of reaction, haven't we?
We have, yeah, and it has been. There's been some really good reaction, and there has been some reaction regarding us calling out the borrowing of foreign players from certain bands that were at the festival. So yeah, we can get the sort of points they're making, and I think some of these bands feel a bit singled out. We weren't meaning to single these bands out. They were
Not
just
at all.
used as convenient examples of this was endemic, apparently, from some highly respected media friends there, that about 75% of the bands in the Grand Shield had borrowed players in some guise or other. So we've had a bit of calling out on that, but to be perfectly honest, a lot of it has been a bit selective with the truth, or at least has been economical. So they've been calling out certain things and maybe a bit selective with the truth, or certainly being economical with it, which, you know, they've been calling out maybe some of the pedantic things about where certain people played in the band. The sort of seats that we mentioned, but in actual fact, those players were still playing with those bands, and we do know that these bands that have done this have shipped in players from bands that are already at the Open, and or have shipped in players who are based abroad, have not broken any rules. We do understand that.
No, that's a good point. We're not saying that any band has broken any rules, but it's interesting, Sandy. We've both had a separate set of messages, obviously, and we've shared a lot of them. What I've found is that bands who have been, let's use the flying in foreign players, the bands that have used them have basically been contacting us, be it through the Facebook site or private messages, justifying what they did. I don't need them to justify themselves, Sandy, myself, because they didn't break any rules. What we are saying is that a few rules need to change. And I think some people are missing that point.
Yeah, there's a bigger picture here. We're not singling out individual bands. What we are saying is, and in some ways, I don't blame the bands.
No.
Okay, if this is a loophole or a thing that is allowed to happen, then, I mean, put yourself, you had a band and I had a band, right? You would be saying, well, he's going to be borrowing players. I'm bloody doing it as well. You know, if you're allowed to do it, then you exploit it. If you can afford to do it and fly in foreign players, that's what's going on. But there are certain issues. We have had a lot of comments, and to be fair, the positive private comments we've had have by far outweighed the negative. There's a lot of people agreeing with what we're saying, and I just think that we're trying to get the best for British banding. I don't care who wins and loses these contests. You know, I would what I'm trying to point out is, if we keep importing foreign players, where's that leaving our developing younger players who, you know, should really be, you know, encouraged to step up to the plate, sort of thing, and play for these bands? We're stopping them developing to a certain extent because this is allowed to happen.
Somebody put a comment on one of the posts, Sandy, and it quite amused me, actually, because they said the ideal band for an aspiring conductor is a band with loads of gaps but a big fat checkbook.
Yeah.
That just sums it up. You know, we can't get to that situation. We've got to keep developing these players and giving them a chance. And think drawing the line over this bringing flying players in, it's just ridiculous to me.
I still don't see what benefit it gives. It gives the individual band benefit, and I understand that everybody's at it, so they're all at it, sort of thing.
Yeah.
It doesn't do British bands any good. It just doesn't. You know, we have to develop. If we want British banding to improve, and we are getting left behind standard-wise in certain areas, we've got to stop it. The foreign associations, band associations, have a residency rule. We need the same. We need the same. I know that in certain circumstances there'll be medical emergencies, you know, last minute stuff, somebody injures themselves or whatever, you know, and you can draft somebody in at the last minute. Yeah, there'll always be those little ones. But at the moment, this is being twisted and abused by bands to fly in soloists.
Yeah, it's never the second cornet, is it? Yeah.
No, it's not. It's never. It's not. It's always the sop or the principal cornet or something. You know, it's never the second horn player. It's always the solo horn, etc., etc. You know, and no matter how you dress it up, you know, it's all of it is done for one reason only. Those bands are trying to get one up on the rivals, and they're using foreign players to do it. Again, the football analogy or the rugby analogy, you cannot have it. You cannot have Norwich City playing a load of Man City players. It's just it's a nonsense. So anybody trying to justify it is we know they're wrong. We just, you know, that's why they're a bit irate. It's not that they've been called out. So and it is nothing against any specific band. So I think really there are two things that need to happen before next year's Spring Festival. The first one is we've got to change this registration thing. So you cannot go back to the band you have just left until 6 months have passed. Okay?
Yeah. And probably a maximum of 2 transfers per year.
Yeah, I think that's because no matter what's in place, we tend to try and be looking for the loopholes all the time.
Yeah.
So if you leave a band, you know, you're not allowed to just hop about and swap shop like you said. You can't do it because it's obviously just. I mean, it's not transferring bands, is it? I mean, those players who have left British Open bands to play at the Grand Shield have not joined those bands.
No,
they have temporarily joined to play at that contest. They have no intention whatsoever of staying with those bands now. They're going to be back in their own bands as soon as it's possible. Don't dress it up, please. It's just nonsense, right? Just call a spade a spade. So that's first thing that has got to happen. And the second thing is, as they have in other European countries, we have to have a UK residency rule brought in for our contests. Norway does it, Switzerland does it. There's plenty of other places do it. You know, that includes people on legitimate music courses, college courses. It doesn't include someone who's, you know, because you know what's going to happen. Some smart aleck will say, look, just say you're coming across for some lessons with our ex-principal cornet player, you know, and we'll get you in that way. That doesn't wash. They have to be on a legitimate college course. And then they are resident here for the length of the course. That's fine. But we need those two things to be brought in, because otherwise we're just at the laughing stock. You know,
at the end of the day, we can't do all about it because we're in no position to do anything about it. We just got to plead with people who can to at least take a look at it and hear us out and just see if there's any mileage in it. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious to me, to be honest.
I just think that it's we've got to see the bigger picture. This is what a lot of people are failing to see. They think this is going to damage their own band. Okay. What we are trying to look at is the bigger overall picture going forward, right? So that we have British-based players developing sooner than they're maybe being allowed to at the moment, and you know, we just stop the import of foreigners to if we're going to have any sort of hold at the top table in banding in Europe going forward the next 10, 15, 20 years, we've got to develop our own players. Some people, like the guy we're going to speak to now, are already on this, and we think this is a really good, feel-good, positive story, which I think listeners will be interested in. So
Yeah. I will say before we go over to the interview, which we recorded a couple of weeks ago, there is a slight echo on the recording, so we do apologise for that. But I'd like to introduce a really dynamic band leader in Mr. Martin Hall from the Tewit Band organisation. Welcome, Martin.
Hi, Martin. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello there. Okay, so Martin, just before we get into Tewit, do you want to give us a brief background as to what you did as a player and conducting and adjudicating and things like that?
Right, yeah, no problem. I started off at the age of 7. My father and my brother played in the local colliery band. It was Rossville Colliery Band at the time. And my father, as you do, he popped a cornet on my lap and said, "There you go, son. You can play one of these." And so I went along to band practice with my father and my brother, and plonked on third cornet and started there. But also at the same time, Bob Walker set up a learners band in Charleston Colliery Band.
Yeah.
And they actually went on to be quite successful before they folded. So I was involved in the startup of that. So I got some youth banding experience from Bob and from being part of that band. So I spent many years of my childhood playing with my father and my brother, which was a great experience. And you know, I always remember going to the Siswo competition in Blackpool, which I loved because you were away for the weekend and you were staying in a hotel, and it was fantastic. And that was really my first insight into contesting.
Do you think like weekends like that? I mean, recently we've had Butlins.
Yeah.
Do you think weekends like that sort of give you a bit of a buzz because they're good fun?
I think they're very important. I was very upset when Butlins got canned, really. I think a lot of people were. I enjoyed the experience, and I found, I know we'll come on to it later, but there's the younger end, they thoroughly enjoyed the Butlins experience because it was a weekend away, doing something that they loved.
Yeah.
And though the older players will do the same at the Spring Festival in a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah.
You know, so I do think that thing. So that gave me a lot of encouragement as a young player, really, to get into the bug of brass banding. So I continued playing the cornet and went through from third to second cornet to Repertoire in a little colliery band, and then I went on drums.
Oh, wow.
I became a drummer.
You gave up music then?
But before that, I'd had a few lessons at school on the drums and the cornet, and being a 14-year-old, 15-year-old, you know, I got into drumming because it was cooler at school rather than carrying your cornet case. So I played drums and percussion for a few years, and ended up playing the drums in the band, and then I went to A-Sprint with Alan Morrison.
Okay.
I followed my brother there, and that was the first time I'd actually had any contesting success. I'd never won a contest before.
Right.
But it was on the drums. Not taking anything away from drummers, I love you. But that was great. And then A-Sprint folded, and then I followed my brother again to Wakefield Met on the drums. But I still played the cornet, and my passion was really playing the cornet. So I ended up back at my old band, helping out a little bit. And
who was your teacher then?
Well, at that point I thought, I'm going to get a hold of this, because I could play fairly well at that point, but I wanted to be a lot better. So I rung Jim Shepherd up, I said, Jim, can I come for lessons, please? He said,
well, something in common then.
Yeah.
Because Jim started me playing.
Right, well, he was a bit apprehensive at first because he said he was a bit busy, but he said, yeah, come along, bring your con. I said, well, I'll come whenever you want, any day, any time, I'll just be there. So I went along to Jim, and I saw Jim every week for 14 years.
Jeez.
14 years. We went away together. We had 2 holidays away together. We filmed an advert in Belgium for a Scottish whiskey company. I'll not mention it, just in case you Google it on YouTube. It's on there.
I bet somebody's drunk for that.
Well,
you could mention it, then we may get some freebies.
Well, we went to Belgium, and world famous Jim Shepherd, and they put him on clarinet.
What?
They put him on clarinet because it was all mined. And at the end of the week, I was still playing tunes on
That's
the clarinet.
brilliant. There must be, if there's a video of that, I would pay to see that.
It's on there.
Well, you need to do that.
Yeah, it's a bit strange, but it is there on YouTube. So I was taught by Jim, and we were friends. Brought me harp when he sadly passed away.
Lovely
one. It was, and do you know what? He taught me everything that I could absorb, and but he also encouraged me to go see other people as well, other teachers. Right. So I went to the Royal Academy of Music down in London. I had a couple of lessons off James Watson, Paul Archibald. I had lessons off Roger Webster, Richard Marshall, a trumpet player called Roddy from South Wales, like a session screamer.
All right.
He usually just sent me everywhere and said, right, come back. What did they say? Give me some feedback on how are they doing this, how are they doing that. So it was I found the entire lesson process and the teaching really interesting. Right. In fact, more interesting than sometimes actually playing it. The actual psyche of how do you play. It was big into Arnold Jacobs, wasn't Jim, in his latter years, and the teaching that he has all about the song and wind and the breath control and everything. Because obviously a tuba player.
Yeah.
So I studied the technique of that quite hard. And Jim said to me one day, he said, "You'll end up conducting you." I didn't take any notice at that time, but he did actually say that to me. So that was me teaching really. So then I kind of kicked the drums into touch, and I went back serious into cornet playing, and I was making good progress. So I went back to Wakefield Met. I was a kit player at Wakefield Met. I went back as principal cornet. Wow. So,
but that's the only time that's ever happened.
Yeah, well, I could see all the band members looking around at each other. Isn't he the drummer?
Yeah.
We won the first section in the Yorkshire area.
Who was conducting Wakefield Met then?
Brian Dyson.
I remember Brian.
Brian Dyson.
He conducted Queensbury when I was still
involved. Loved the man conducting. Yeah. So and then went from Wakefield Met, a little bit of a stint at Skelmanthorpe on cornet. Carlton Main, did the British Open with Carlton Main. Right. I was top man at Nottingley, when they're in and around the top section. Then I was at Drigg as top man when they were in top section as well.
Was that when Colin was taking them?
No, Kevin Belcher.
All right.
Then went there at both Nottingley and Driglington, and it was at that time that I had a few lessons off Richard, and Richard encouraged me to go to Dyke, where I saw you at Dyke.
Yeah.
Had a couple of tours, did a few recordings with Dyke, and I was going to go there. I was offered a number of times to go full time at Dyke, and I'd had quite a long stint as their regular dep, which I liked because I could do my principal cornet duties at Drigg and wherever, but still get playing opportunities there. But I had a really young family then. I had the businesses were busy, young family, I could not commit to
Yeah.
the level of commitment that would.
It's very much a young man or a young woman's game.
Yeah. So then I kind of stopped playing for a few months, and I got a call to see if I'd take a rehearsal at South Milford Brass, who I think were second section. That had quite a lot of success from the previous conductor, and so I went along, and I took the rehearsal. They asked if I'd do the next concert, so I did the concert, and then they asked if I could do the competition then in the second section in the north of England. The test piece was Resurgam.
Okay.
You know, first contest, and you've got to conduct Resurgam.
Yeah.
You know, so I did. I had a wonderful few years with South Milford. We had great success. We won the nationals. And then I was asked if I'd like to put my name forward to conduct Skelmanthorpe, and that was in 2012, 2013, I think. So I went to Skelmanthorpe for a few years, and then the conducting kind of took over.
So you took to conducting like you did percussion and cornet playing?
No more than that, I think. I still do play the drums occasionally. Just don't anybody ring me up, please. You know, I'd be very rusty.
So how did your involvement with Tewit begin?
Right. I was friends with David Smith. He popped on to South Milford a few times and helped me out there, and he was just going into Black Dyke at the time, and he was the conductor at the Tewit Youth Senior Band.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously because of the schedules of Black Dyke and other things, I think he was, you know, finding the scheduling quite tough, as you would do. And he couldn't make a particular job. So he phoned me up and said, any chance that you can come and take this job on? And it was for one of our benefactors' birthday. I think it was his 70th birthday. And it was just to play Congratulations and a couple of pieces on the steps of the Royal Hall in Harrogate. And so I said, yeah, no problem there, I'll go and do that. And then they so we set the band up and played Congratulations, and our benefactor popped along, and then the next person I saw was Lionel Richie. So I thought this might be a decent gig, this one.
Wow.
Yeah, and he provided the entertainment inside. It's just a pity we weren't allowed to go inside, really. So that wasn't the first time that I was actually introduced to the band. Now, here's the thing. I live about 8 miles from the Tewit band room between Leeds and Harrogate. And I'd never heard of Tewit.
Really?
I'd never heard of the band.
Right.
I didn't know who they were, didn't know the name.
Wow.
I didn't really know them.
I've known of the name knocking around for quite a number.
I did years ago, in the 80s, I did a solo gig for Tewit. Leighton Rich.
He was the founder.
Was the founder of the band, and he was the conductor at the time. Yeah. I got to know Leighton.
So I never heard of them, and you know, and I enjoyed that gig, and then I got asked if I'd do the concert again. You know, I think they need a little bit of help there, so I went and did that, and then the vacancy arose, and the president, Colin Gibbs, approached me and said, you know, would you like to take the band on? Now, at that time, I was still the conductor at Skelmanthorpe. So I took both on, which is hard work.
Very much.
And I loved it. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah. So you eventually left Skelmanthorpe and
I did. I did the. I didn't think my face completely fit. Whether I went there at the wrong time, I don't know. I had a good couple of years there. I won the Brass of the Guild in the top section with them. So we had a decent amount of success. But these things turn around, don't they? So I left Skelmanthorpe, and then I went to Repertoire Band, which I kind of had a sniff of anyway, because Malcolm Dibb was caretaker conductor of the Tewit Senior Band, and he was also conductor Ripon at the time. Yeah, it's like in a caretaker role, because he was retiring from the band. He had amazing success with them. So we had a discussion, and I felt that could potentially be a good thing because it's closer to the Tewit organisation. So I could plug a few kids in there.
Yeah.
So I went there for a couple of years.
So can you explain how the Tewit organises? Because I believe there's more than...
Yeah, right.
There's a few bands.
Yeah, what the Tewit Youth organisation has, we've got the training band, and that's where they can't play an instrument, notes, anything. We get them completely fresh. As soon as they get playing five or six notes, then they go to the junior band.
Okay.
They progress through. Then it's the intermediate band. Then it's the senior band.
Right.
Of the Tewit Youth organisation.
So what level is the senior band at the minute?
The senior band, they play in the championship of the national youth competitions. So they're like Elland, and they're at that kind of level. Doing really well.
So how do you get young players to stick with it?
Right. This kind of leads in to what we did next as well. When I left Ripon, it was born out of the need for something else within the Tewit Youth organisation. What I was finding is that the kids within the Tewit Youth, obviously they can only play until they're 18, and then they've got to leave to make space for the next child to come through. That's how most youth bands work. And what we're finding is that we're putting all this work into them, and then they were just dropping off the scope.
Oh dear.
They weren't continuing on, and it doesn't matter what kind of level anybody's at, a child's at. You can't let them fall off the brass band movement radar, because that's a player lost at any level.
It's the time of big change in their lives, isn't it?
It is. So
university and all that.
Yeah, so there were a problem there, which I saw, and it wasn't because of the other local bands or any bands not providing them that opportunity, because there were, but I think it's because they were so used to going to that band room and seeing the same people, and they didn't have the desire to do so. Yeah, so it was difficult. So I wanted to try and maintain their interest, and if I could get a bit better interest out of the youth players, they'd enjoy it more, and they'd stick with it more. Going back to my early childhood in going to the Cicero contest and going to and getting to the adult banding and getting that scene, because youth banding is quite a lot different, I think, to adult banding. You don't have the sheer number of contesting opportunities. The contests are different, especially now. The national youth, they don't do the set test. It's an entertainment program.
All right.
So they don't have the opportunities to try and develop the playing and get interested in it, and so I needed to do something to grab that interest.
So what did you do?
I formed another band.
Wow.
So 6 years ago, we formed Tewit Silver, and I had half a dozen maybe 10 players that I knew that were interested in doing that, who are adults of varying abilities. And then I had a good dozen players within the senior band that were interested in doing this.
Yeah.
So we thought, right, this is what we're going to do, because it will provide a structure and a safe environment that they already know.
Yeah.
They know me, they know a good dozen of the friends that are going to do it.
Yeah.
And the big thing about attracting young players is having young players.
Exactly.
So by having a big number of young players anyway, everybody wanted to come.
Yeah.
So we formed the Tewit Silver Band, and we've had phenomenal success, and the platform worked as well in terms of what we wanted to do. Because here's the thing: here's how it's hard for bands, for adult bands, to get the kids in. I think number one, you've got to have kids in the band to attract more kids.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, it can be, I'm not saying boring. No, it's just different. It's a different experience.
Yeah.
Okay, and you put a few kids together and they make their own fun. Yeah, if you think back to your days.
Well, I came up through Queensbury Music Centre. I don't know whether you remember.
Yeah.
Jim started it, and I was lucky that I came through with a lot of people my age, and then I decided to go into adult banding, where I went to Hammond's first. That was a bit of a shock, because there were nobody around my age, and I was on my own, so to speak. There was Andy Whittam, who we formed a great friendship. But you're right. If they'd not got the other youngsters in there...
It is true. I mean, when I started at Whitburn Junior Band, and then ended up, I think I mentioned this a couple of podcasts ago, they started a junior band with the view of feeding the senior band. And then after a year, 18 months, there were 6 of us promoted straight into the senior band. So you weren't there on your own. And it was a proper adult band. I was only 14, 15. But I had 6 mates with me as well, including people like Andy Duncan and, who's at the tuba player, and Marty Wilson, trombonist at the Ulster Orchestra, all these guys. Yeah, but we all went up together. So there was a bit of sort of moral and support, when we used to, it was great fun as well.
So they've now got the opportunity to progress from the youth section and dip the toe gently.
That's right.
But surely into the senior, into the...
And enjoy it. And because we provided that opportunity for them, and because that's the struggle that a lot of bands are having in trying to get the kids in because of the number of the kids. And the other thing where I think it's hard for bands to attract them in is practice nights. We set Tewit Silver up to have 1 practice night a week.
Right.
Because if you get a child that's 14, 15, 16, they're doing GCSEs, they've got school, they have concert bands, they have other things on, they have a busy life. So if we have a rehearsal, which is a Wednesday night, to try and get them into another band that's twice a week, that's 3 nights.
Yeah.
That's a big ask.
Big
commitment. On top of homework and all this.
It is. Yeah. So I said, right, we just need to be, as long as what we can, just once a week. So that child is only out twice a week. Yeah. So it's a bit more sensible.
So when you started the Silver Band, Tewit Silver, what level did you go in at? 4th section?
4th section.
Okay.
We had...
so it builds up.
We had 14 players that was under the age of 18.
Wow.
And we were. I mean, we entered the 4th section of the north of England, and we didn't win it. We came second.
That's not too bad.
It's all right.
You say that as if it's a failure,
It's all right. So, we entered down there, and we've been to the national finals every year since.
Good.
Next year.
But hang on, you've not only just been every year, you've won.
We've won twice.
Yeah,
we've won twice. Yeah, we won the nationals twice. So.
Me and Sandy talk regular, obviously. He's done it again.
Yeah. We kind of like Cheltenham.
So the kids will love that.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's thing is, if you can get a dozen youth players and you channel energy into them, there's only one way they're going to go.
Yeah.
And if they go sky high at the progress that they do, the band's just going to go sky high, and it's going to make me look good anyway. It's not really down at me; it's down at them really going for it.
I remember me and Sandy judged, and you were playing at Brass Factor, and you had the soprano player. And I was just absolutely not. I think it was you, Sandy, or Lee Baker. I was absolutely knocked out.
Well, was it the year that we City of Bradford were there?
Yes.
We did the full programme without any music. The full lot.
You did.
And we got docked. We came second by a point. Or something like that.
It's a strange system that I blame me.
Yeah, we went over time. I got time deducted.
Yeah.
Not Sandy had the stop.
But they played the whole thing.
Yeah, and you know what? I do that a lot. So I'll do a set all without music, just to make it interesting. If you get a program that they can play, well, let's make it harder, right? So we're now going to play without music, and we're going to introduce movement. So we're going to move around,
right?
And it's not the old thing where you stand up and play your part, then sit down, stand up and play your part. No, we're going to move around.
There's nothing worse, is there, than a soloist standing up and looking half down as if he's looking through his glasses.
Yeah.
Do you know where I got the idea from? I watched a concert that David King did with a European band, and they were knelt down on the floor and they did all the moving around. And I think it was a West Side Story piece.
Could have been Stavanger then.
Yeah, I think it was. And I thought, this is wonderful. This is viewing. This is really good. So I thought, I'll make that a little more. So
the kids will enjoy that, won't they? The younger ones would really enjoy it.
Do you know what? I can stand in front of the youth band and ask them to do anything, and they'll just go, "Yeah, we'll take that out. We'll do that." Imagine stood in front of about said, "Right, we're gonna do this without music."
No.
You get met with resistance.
Grumbling.
Well, it's like that. You know that stage show that was on about 20 years ago, Blast? It was American. They were ex-college kids in these marching bands, and they did this show, and it's absolutely amazing. And it's all without music, the whole thing. And it toured the world. It went to London. It was in the big theatres, and they're all doing all this stuff. Like Malaguena and G Officer Krupke and all that, and they're doing all sorts of things. And people said, "How should you do that?" They used to say that when I was at Grezzy. I said, "Yeah, that's fine, but all these kids they're in their 20s. They look great. Can you imagine? can you imagine, 40, 50-year-old blokes wandering about the stage and doing all this? It just doesn't have the same."
No. But you see, youth banding now, through the old action research thing, that they've been doing this for years, haven't they?
Yeah.
Putting shows on. And it has started bleeding into brass in concert, which is another subject altogether, which we will probably get onto. But maybe another day.
I would much rather watch a youth band at an entertainment contest than watch an adult band play in front of a screen.
Yeah, I agree.
Not to be controversial, but that to me takes more work.
If you're not going to be controversial, you're in the wrong place in this podcast.
So that's great development for all the players going through these.
Well,
going right.
You know what, the formula, it's worked. I mean, Tewit Youth Band, our senior band, we had 4 principals at the National Youth.
Okay, the last 4. Yeah.
We've had the Fernley brothers, George and Ben, who are making a real name for themselves. So we we're sending players out to top bands, and the number of players that we get that go on to Royal Northern, down to the Academy in London, and they really are.
How many of the youth band members of the National Youth Band of Great Britain, the children's band and the senior band, do they get involved?
Yeah, absolutely. And we also try to support the Yorkshire Youth brass band as well. So the more experience and the more exposure they get, the better.
They're meeting other people their age.
That's right. Having fun. Some want to do it, some don't, and I don't. I encourage them all the same. And, you know, you'll always get the players that aren't really interested. You know, they just come because they enjoy it. And do you know what? There's a place for them as well. And there's a place for them in adult banding going forward.
When they might suddenly get in, you know.
You've got to keep at it.
Really
That's right. It's getting that book.
So how do you go about, you must have a plan. I know you've got a plan for Repertoire. How do you sort of see the use of Repertoire in developing these players and keeping interest? What sort of things do you do to allow them to progress in their musical tastes and things like that?
I always try to vary it. Okay. So I vary as much as what I can between the older stuff, the delicate stuff, the modern, exciting stuff. Because we do carry 4 percussionists, sometimes 5. Tewit Silvers. We're littered with very talented.
Have you taught them all yourself?
No, thankfully, no. But you've got to keep them engaged. So if I play music that doesn't involve percussion too much, they're going to get switched off. They're going to be at the back of the rehearsal room on the phones. You know, they're not going to be engaged in rehearsal. So you've got to take that into consideration.
Can I just slightly sort of a bit of a sort of cul-de-sac this bit about the percussion? Because there's a lot of comments at the minute and ideas saying percussionists are like hen's teeth. What do? We haven't got them. Blah blah blah. How do you start them off? Who starts off these players right from day one? How do you get them interested to start off? So for brass players and percussion, so are you starting kids from scratch on percussion?
Absolutely from scratch.
So how are they finding out about the organisation? How do you go about publicising what the whole thing is about and to get kids interested? Is it word of mouth from peers, or is it, well, I'll let you explain it.
We go out and do podcasts promoting the band. We go around schools. We have open days. But the biggest draw of getting young players in is sending the young band out. So if we send the junior band out, or the training band out, you know, somebody will tap them on the shoulder. I quite like to do that, Mum. You know, can I do that? Where can I?
So they're basically seeing players of their own age.
That's it.
So the youngsters who are watching the performance, who are not playing, are seeing players of their own age playing.
That's it.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So they'll and what you normally get and what we find is that there's 2 things: is family members. You get one child and you get the siblings.
Okay.
So we have quite a lot of large families that come along through the entire band group, and then you get friends of friends. Yeah. That, you know, my mate's going. Do you fancy going? You know, so I can't play. But it don't matter. We've got a training band. We'll start from scratch. Get another instrument out of the cupboard or a pair of drumsticks.
Yeah.
Because you can't just do you got to do the drums as well.
Yeah.
So we do every single instrument because we send them out as a band.
Right.
And then they progress through.
See what they're up to and
that's
can I have a go?
That's it. Yeah.
That's really interesting. I mean, so obviously with the percussionists, you've got to keep the balance right on the repertoire. So if you're going to do all night on hymns, you're going to lose them very quickly.
That's right. You've got to do a bit of jazz.
Yeah.
You've got to do a bit of rock.
Yeah.
You've got to do a modern piece that's got plenty of timps. Yeah. You've got to keep the timpanist busy and all the other bits and pieces. And what certainly our lot are good at doing, they share it around.
Yeah.
And the older percussionists encourage the younger ones.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like anything, you know, if you are sitting at the side of somebody who's experienced, you're going to learn from that experience. And the kids do that within their little group as well. So that's how that's done really with percussion.
You know, years ago I used to sit in my school band and I used to look over and see what fingers my mates were pressing down. And I started pressing the same note. What I didn't realise is I were in E flat and they were in B flat.
Right.
So just going back to the repertoire thing then, as the kids get older, are you introducing more music that we would sort of recognise as being...
Yes, I mean, the players the players that are further on, are further developed, obviously they get opportunities, not just with Tewit Silver, but with other local bands as well. And then you've got an access to test pieces.
Mm-hmm.
I certainly think that there's not enough test piece opportunities for youth bands. There's the pieces there. The area piece, Carenius.
Right, yeah.
That was a youth piece.
You see, this is a thing that people get mixed up with, or they get the wrong end of the stick. Because I remember when Carenius, how do you pronounce it?
Carenius.
Right, okay. When it got picked, it says, "Oh, bloody hell, we've got, a youth section piece. What the hell's happening?" And you think, well, have you heard youth bands lately?
Yeah.
It's got nothing to do with what it was originally written for. It's a piece of music.
Rick does some. Any opportunity I have a listen to his Wardle.
Well, they've got a proper set on them, haven't they?
It's slightly different because it's a school thing.
It is.
But this is obviously, this podcast is about how to help bands gain from your experience.
But see, I mean, I'm not speaking at a school or anything, literally, but how Lee did it. I mean, he used to start his warble bands in year 7, and then he had this absolutely genius idea of taking that band round the primary schools, the feeder schools for Wardle Academy, and he would go in at, sort of year 4 thing, and then start them in year 5 and 6 in primary school, teach them in primary school, and then instead of starting a band in year 7 from scratch, he had a ready-made band of about 50 kids who had already learned for 2 years in primary school in a group of 15 or something, and then you stick them all together and you've got a band of 50.
I've been in their
genius.
I've been in their classrooms at the school, and I've looked at the rehearsal schedules on the wall. It's every day, and it's wonderful. It's absolutely fantastic to see.
Yeah.
But on the pieces, I would love the nationals, the youth nationals, to go back to the set test. I would love that.
I judged it a few
years
ago, and they had it was a bit like the old brass in concert concept, where they would have a set piece. It would be only 4 or 5 minutes long, and they had that plus the rest of your programme. Because the one I did, I think, in fact, Lee won with Wardle. They did. It was West Country Fantasy, Gordon Langford.
Yeah. Now, I enjoyed doing that.
Yeah, and I think the kids would have done as well.
Yeah, and what we did, we used that then the entire year on his concert repertoire. That was fantastic. Put it on at a bandstand. And it's perfect for a Sunday afternoon.
I don't get this idea that some people have about, you see it all the time, and I know we hunt the comments on social media just for things, and people saying, Frank Bernard's rubbish, and it's not rubbish. It's not rubbish.
Where would youth bands and lower section bands be without Frank Bernard?
Well, when I was growing up, it was Edric Siebert.
Yeah.
If it hadn't been for Edric Siebert, I wouldn't have learned how to play. No. All that stuff, Connecticut Capers and all this stuff.
We have loads of Alan Fern in our programme.
Yeah. Well, there you go. That's somebody else who knows exactly what they're doing.
Brilliant at pitching the pieces to the right ages.
Yeah.
Really good. It must be his experience with the Scottish Youth Band and in...
Well, it's his work experience of being the brass Perry for 40 years.
Yeah.
He knows it like the back of his hand. Yeah. We've talked about this before. This is but he knows how to write. He knows how to make it interesting. Yeah. Gordon Langford, the same thing.
Yeah.
Writes well, and that's a bit more. You do need better players for a lot of those arrangements.
Yeah.
But it's so well written, and again, it's music that's written to make your band sound good. It's not music, as you get with a lot of test pieces, higher up the food chain, where they're trying to cock you up. Yeah. It's really good stuff. So how do the kids, if you pick the odd older piece or the dreaded yellow music, how do they approach it? How do they?
They're all right. We're doing the finale from Faust at the moment,
right?
So.
It's a cracking.
Yeah, and it introduces other playing techniques. I try to introduce pieces that are also they're going to take home and they're going to learn how to double tongue. They're going to learn how to do this because it's in the piece. So I try to vary it as much as what I can.
Right.
So that's how I do it really. I tell you what is on my mind, and now we can possibly help push repertoire and push young players into playing test pieces and get into the psyche of playing in adult bands. Here's a thought: when you get an adult band and you're limited to your 25 on your contest stage, a local band saying third, fourth section, why can't they play more, but they've got to be under 18?
Well, that's a cracking idea.
So say for instance, you've got a local band, and they're near a youth organisation. There's a couple of players there. I tell you what, let's play an extra second and an extra third cornet, or an extra bass.
Yeah.
The 15-year-old, the 13-year-old. But they can't because they're locked on numbers.
Just giving them that opportunity.
And the problem is when you've got a local band. That they've got a nucleus of players that have been there for years.
The stalwarts.
Yeah. So you can't get rid of them.
No.
Because they're vital to that band. But how do you get the new ones coming through?
Yeah.
That's worth considering. It's worth thinking about and having a discussion. Proper think and a discussion.
Allow 2 additional players. As long as that they're under.
I think you could. I know in the last podcast we talked about the European and having 35 and how that's distorted things a bit.
Yeah.
This, although it looks on paper, but it looks on paper like it's a similar thing, but it's not.
No.
Because you're giving these players, and at that level, is it really? It's probably going to create potentially more problems for the conductor because the intonation and stuff like that.
That's right. You see, take the cons test in Birmingham, for example. Yeah. The rule there, I think, were 30 players. Now, I didn't ring my mates and say, I'll grab a player from there and a player from there. We'll get a better chance. I flooded it for kids.
Right.
Flooded the band.
Well done.
And we got 4th. We did really well. So, because it was an opportunity.
Yeah.
The contest that's just gone, we fielded 12 kids at the contest at Home Firth there. Because again, it was an opportunity to do so.
Yeah.
How many bands don't have the opportunity to play an extra couple of kids?
Yeah, it really is worth thinking about, isn't it? Because I've seen 4-section bands going on with 18.
Less sometimes.
And you think, oh.
Because they're hobbling along, but I mean, we know that this thing with Martin and Tewit is a success story, and one of the reasons is we want to try and pick his brains about how they go about it. There are other people doing similar things in other places, but rather than sit on your backsides and moan about why we haven't got this, we haven't got that, you're starting them from scratch, aren't you?
Yeah.
But you've got a way of taking your product into primary schools or
that's right.
And showing them what can do.
You see, the problem that I've got now is that because Tewit Silver's into the top section next year, the jump between Tewit Youth and the senior band and Silver's is quite large. A young youth player that's not gone into an adult band before suddenly going to top section. That's going to be scary, and the pieces are going to be scary.
Yeah. So
it's more in terms of the music. How are they going to tackle that? They're not. It's going to put them off. It's going to scare them. So it's a scoop for you. So I'm forming another band.
Oh,
we've got another one coming along. So in September we're forming Tewit Community Brass.
Right.
And to plug the gap, because again we're finding that they're not going outside the bubble. They're reluctant to go outside the bubble, and I've got the potential of the drop off again.
Yeah.
And I never want a drop off of players not giving it a go, not playing twice a week. So it's going to be once a week on a Tuesday night, and I've got parents of those children that also I'll go at that at a low level.
Yeah,
Just again to encourage them and to do what we did with Silver again.
Yeah,
and it worked. It works with that band, and so we're giving it another go.
Yeah,
and then hopefully that could then be another feeder band for Tewit.
So you're gonna have no end of bands before you've done.
How many did Jim Shepherd form? About 9.
Well, I know they have JS and Queensbury.
He did. So
they had great success with both organs. Again, it's a bit like you. He used his knowledge to help the kids come through, and it worked a treat. Because I was one of the younger ones in Queensbury, but the older ones, they included you and helped you. And I mean, I was way out of my depth, but they help you.
They help you,
and you're listening.
Yeah,
and
that's what happens, and then they develop.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm just looking at. Sorry for I've grabbed my phone here, and something this morning. I thought I took a screenshot of it, and I haven't. And it was to do with bands, and it was on about school kids. I can't find it, but it said something on the lines of, if you want to get kids to work together, put them in a band. If you want to get kids to support each other and encourage each other, put them in a band. And it was on that lines. There was 3 or 4 of these little comments on this meme, and I thought, God, that, and especially with knowing we were speaking to you tonight, I thought that's absolutely bang on.
Yeah. You'll see the lads and lasses that we've got. They don't just play in the band; they socialise outside the band.
Yeah,
and that's into the 20s and 30s.
Yeah.
They're continuing to be friends. That will go off into town together. They'll, you go on a contest and they'll catch a bus and go see. They really do become bonded together as a close group of friends, which I think you will have experienced as we know. And,
well, there you go.
Those
people that I started in the junior band with, you're still in contact with. A lot of them,
Yeah, absolutely.
And a lot of them have carried on doing stuff.
Yeah.
And banding provides that level of friendship, doesn't it?
It does.
It's a social activity as well as a...
I don't mind saying I haven't got many friends outside banding. And it's just how it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Still in touch with a lot of my former players when I was a young kid.
So for these bands, what's your balance between contests and concerts?
When we set up Tewit Silver, because obviously we don't have a regular concert platform, because concerts are generally repetitive through the year.
Yeah,
you
same time.
You do the same.
Yeah.
So, but that's growing. That's growing in number as we get more popular and as we get a name.
Yeah.
People will ring us now. So in the early days, it was predominantly contests.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd do 5 contests, 6 contests a year, which I think is a good number. Now we're probably half and half now with Silver.
Mm-hmm.
Youth banding, it's predominantly concerts.
Yeah.
Is it because there's not many youth competitions around?
There isn't enough.
I don't think there is.
No, I don't think there is.
And I can't name one set test.
Yeah, there needs to be more because, I mean, we mentioned Brass Factor earlier. It gives them an opportunity, doesn't it? But there really is.
The impression I get is that the kids can handle more than you think. I remember speaking to Morgan Griffiths recently, and he was saying his Bradford, the one he has in schools, and they were doing some big event or something, and they had to choose a piece to play. And he says he let the kids have a say in this, and they didn't want the sort of light, what he thought, the music he was using to keep them sort of. They wanted to play Eddie Gregson's Partita.
Oh, right.
They chose that themselves
because
they got into it and liked it. I just think, they're more capable than, But I think, and again, that would start them, this idea about competing against other people on exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
it introduces them to the model of doing that. So I think a good level of contesting will be better.
I mean, for sure, it was a lot busier when we were younger.
Yeah, but I mean, you could argue the whole thing was a lot bigger.
But for that level, I remember being out once a month, contesting, doing all sorts of stuff. And then on top of that, there were the also melodies.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So what we do to keep interest flying as well, we take them abroad every other year.
Wow.
We go on tour. So we've recently been to Canada. So
that's not just abroad.
No, we did a concert at Niagara Falls and went all around Canada there. That was quite special. We go to the south of France. This year we went to Germany. We've done Italy. So every other year, the youth band go on tour.
And again, gives them
bonding.
To lock into.
Bonding. We have a very, very hard-working committee, and they fundraise and fundraise and fundraise. And we go and we subsidise the tour. We plough it in, and because it's all about giving them kids as much life experience in a musical environment.
Yeah.
So, music's a big part of it, but you've got to give them something more.
Absolutely.
They need something more. Kids, I think, have got it hard. They can pick a computer console up and within half an hour they're getting feedback. They're getting progression.
Yeah.
They're on level 5 in half an hour, aren't they? With a musical instrument, it takes a lot more dedication. It's a lot harder. Okay. And I think society is very much an online society now with headphones on.
You see it every day.
So it's more of a, I won't say it's a solitude thing because they're talking to other people, but they're not interacting in the same way.
Yeah.
So I think it's vitally important that you give them something more.
Yeah.
Within a controlled musical environment. I really do.
They have some fun doing that.
They do. Do you know something? Conducting a youth band is far harder than it is conducting an adult band. The amount of energy that you've got to put into rehearsal, because they're teenagers, okay? They've got more energy than what you have, 10 times over, and they're like sponges. It's like, give me more, come on, otherwise I'm going to be bored.
Yeah.
So you've really got to pump it into them for an hour and a half, 2 hours on band night. And it's hard. It's really hard.
Hard work.
Much anybody that thinks conducting a youth band is easy, or it's a step below an adult band.
I was going to say
you've got it wrong. No. You've got it wrong. It's a lot harder, and a lot of the time the music's harder and the levels.
Yeah, and again, that's going back to what we're saying about we've got a youth band piece. Well, Yeah.
There's some fantastic bands.
Martin, before we finish though, can I ask you just if you were to give any advice to anyone who is looking to emulate the success that you've built at Tewit, what would you say?
Keep it fun.
Okay.
Try to get the players in and try to get the friends in. Don't matter what level they are, get the numbers. If you get the numbers in, you can grow with it, because you can get a player that's never touched a brass instrument, and within a few months they're playing a tune.
Yeah.
Within 6 months later they're playing a better tune. 18 months, 2 years later, they're playing better than you.
Yeah.
So don't be put off by starting right at the very, very beginning.
Yeah.
Every band has got a cupboard full of battered old instruments.
Yeah.
Get them fettled up. All the local brass repair people will be highly delighted if you did. Get them working. Give them to a school, but you can't just drop them off and say, right, there you go. Here's some instruments you can have. You've got to do something. You've got to get those kids into a band room.
Yeah.
But don't just take one or two. Take as many as what you can and build it up from there.
Yeah. Well, Martin, that's been fantastic insight into how to develop a band. I do feel, and Sandy I know feels, that bands need the insight to see how things are developed. So I'd like to thank you on behalf of Smith and Grezzy for coming along and giving us that insight. Many thanks.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Oh, that was a great interview. So, Sandy, Martin Hall, Tewit Youth Band organisation, that was interesting.
It was, yeah. He's one of these guys, Martin. He's just so full of life. You know, he's one of these. He's always on the go. You know, he's always doing. He's a doer. And yeah, there's some great ideas there that I think a lot of people could maybe pick up. Maybe not them all if they don't fancy it, but certainly they can pick out the bones of that and use things. He's just such a positive character, and
he's certainly a heavy lifter in youth development, that's for sure.
Well, I think he's one of these Pied Piper types, you know. We know a few already, you know, with Lee Riggs, Sam Harrison, and all these people. And yeah, Bandit will only survive because of these people.
Yep.
And will only develop, you know. So I just think, yeah, it's certainly worth hearing how he goes about it. But it doesn't seem that anything phases him, you know.
No.
Yeah, that thing about percussionists, and I asked him about you know, this thing about percussionists being a bit thin on the ground, you know, what do you feel about that? He says, well, we'll just make some. You know, it's not a problem for him. He just goes out of his way. And yes, it takes time. It's
a great attitude, though.
But yeah, it's can-do attitude.
Yeah.
You know, you cannot sit back on your ass. Excuse me.
I'll let you off with that one.
Right. You can't sit on your backside and just think, where are we going to get a percussionist? Or where are we going to get a baritone? Or where are we going to get a, you know, whatever, a B-flat bass player?
Yeah.
You know, you have to be more proactive than that. And it will be the ones that do that, the bands that do that, will be the most successful. He seems to have a way of encouraging team spirit and bonding, a real band atmosphere, you know, people playing for each other and all that sort of thing. I noticed that was one thing that he said when we were clearing up all the microphones and shutting down everything to leave. He said, and he just said it in passing, but I think it's something that's worth. He says, you know, all this stuff. He says, I've never taken a penny for it.
I can believe him.
And that's what he said. I can, because he's a successful businessman, right? He's not pretending like a lot of people are, that they are professional conductors and all this stuff. He's got his own business. He's you know, all of that set up. He's not having to do it for the money.
No.
You know, and he's not doing it. He's doing it for the love. He's doing it for the passion. He's putting stuff back in. I mean, I've been lucky enough. I know Martin since we're playing together, like he mentioned, and then we adjudicated a few things together, and it's just great fun to be with him, and his enthusiasm rubs off, you know. So
it certainly does.
I just hope that people enjoy that look at how Martin organises things and goes about things. They might be able to take some of that away and apply it in their own way.
Absolutely. So, listeners, if you please remember to send in your comments, good or bad. We're not bothered, really. And, you know, if there's things you want us to discuss, please let us know. We've had quite a few already, and we're working on putting them together. So, once again, I'd like you all to thank you all for tuning in to Smith and Grezzy, and we'll look forward to the next podcast shortly. Thank you.